The Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. A cool station wagon that Oldsmobile made from 1964 to 1977. What made this car special? It had skylights and a raised roof that gave passengers more headroom and made the car feel open and airy, especially in the back seats. The Vista Cruiser came out in 1964 when lots of American families were buying station wagons. Oldsmobile wanted to make a car that was useful, but also looked good and had new ideas. The raised roof with skylights was something no one had done before, and it made the Vista Cruiser stand out from other station wagons. Over the years, the Vista Cruiser changed its look a few times. From 1964 to 1967, it had rounded lines and split skylights. Then from 1968 to 1972, it got a single skylight and sharper body lines as car designs were changing. In its last years, from 1973 to 1977, the Vista Cruiser looked more modern with smoother curves and focused on being comfortable and easy to use. The Vista Cruiser was all about making families comfortable. The raised roof with skylights wasn't just for looks. It really made the back seats nicer to sit in. In 1969, they added a dual-action tailgate. This was pretty clever because you could open it like a door or fold it down like a regular tailgate, making it easier to put big things in the back. You could choose different things for your Vista Cruiser to make it just how you wanted. You could pick cloth or vinyl seats that looked good and lasted a long time. Other options were power brakes, power steering, air conditioning, and different radios. You could even get an 8-track tape player, which was really high-tech back then. The Vista Cruiser had strong engines that made it drive well for a family car. Early ones had a 330 cubic inch V8 engine, which was already pretty powerful. Later, they used a 350 cubic inch V8 engine that was good at both power and not using too much gas. If you wanted even more power, you could get a 400 cubic inch V8 or a really big 455 cubic inch V8. These bigger engines made the car go fast and could pull heavy things. The Vista Cruiser was a big car compared to cars today. It was about 218.2 inches long, which gave lots of room inside for people and stuff. It was 77.2 inches wide and 58.6 inches tall, so it felt roomy inside. It weighed about 4,064 pounds, so it was a solid car that could handle different roads well. Inside, the Vista Cruiser was made to be comfy and easy to use. It had padded dashboards and good brakes for safety, plus seat belts to keep everyone safe. You could get power brakes, power steering, and power windows to make it easier to drive. Air conditioning was extra, but a lot of people got it, especially in hot places. You could also get different radios and tape players to listen to music while driving. Some Vista Cruisers had a third row of seats that could fold down when you didn't need them. So, you could choose to carry more people or more stuff. Today, people who love old cars really like the Vista Cruiser. It's worth a lot of money now. A 1966 Vista Cruiser in good shape sold for $49,500, and a 1972 one sold for $35,000. People like it because of how it looks, its strong engines, and how good it was for families. You might have seen Vista Cruisers in TV shows or movies, which makes even more people like them.
The Checker Marathon Wagon. A car that's really interesting and has a lot of history behind it. This car was made by Checker Motors Corporation and was known for being tough and looking different from other cars. The Marathon Wagon came out in 1960 and was made until 1982. Checker was famous for making taxis, but they also made cars for regular people to buy. The Marathon Wagon was built to be strong and handle heavy use, which made it popular with taxi companies and families who needed a reliable car. One cool thing about the Marathon Wagon was how it was built. It was made to be easy to fix. For example, the fenders were attached with bolts instead of being welded on, so if they got damaged, you could just replace them easily. The car had a boxy shape, which might not have been as stylish as other cars at the time, but it meant there was lots of space inside and the driver could see really well. Now, let's talk about what was under the hood. The engines in the Marathon Wagon changed over the years. At first, they used engines made by Continental. From 1961 to 1962, it had a 226 cubic inch engine that could make about 122 horsepower. In 1963 and 1964, they made this engine a bit stronger, and it could make 141 horsepower. In 1965, Checker started using Chevrolet engines. From 1965 to 1968, they used a 230 cubic inch engine that made 140 horsepower. Then, from 1969 to 1970, they switched to a bigger 250 cubic inch engine that could make 155 horsepower. From 1971 to 1982, they offered even bigger V8 engines. These ranged from 283 cubic inches to 350 cubic inches and could make anywhere from 195 to 300 horsepower. Some later models even had diesel engines for better fuel efficiency. Inside the Marathon wagon, things were set up to be comfortable and practical. The seats were big and comfy, perfect for long trips. Most of the time, they had bench seats, which means one long seat instead of separate seats. This gave passengers lots of room. The back seats could be folded down to make more space for carrying stuff, which was great for families or businesses. The materials used inside the car were chosen to last a long time. You could get seats covered in vinyl or cloth, both of which were easy to clean. The dashboard was simple and easy to use, with clear gauges and controls. Depending on which year and model you got, you might have extras like air conditioning or a rear window defroster. One thing people really liked about the Marathon wagon was how much space there was for legs and heads. This made it comfortable for tall people, or for long car rides. The floor in the back was flat, which made it easier for people to put their feet comfortably. Many Marathon wagons that are still around today have been fixed up or changed. Some people repaint them, put in new seat covers, or even put in modern engines to make them run better. The Marathon wagon is remembered as a tough, practical car that could take a lot of wear and tear and keep going. That's why taxi companies loved it, and why families who needed a car they could count on chose it too. Today, people who love old cars really appreciate the Marathon wagon. Some people restore them to show off at car shows, while others still use them as everyday cars. The Studebaker Wagon Air was a unique station wagon made from 1963 to 1966. What made it special was its retractable roof, something you didn't see in other cars back then. This roof could slide open, letting you carry tall items that wouldn't normally fit in a regular station wagon. It's pretty cool to think that decades later, in the early 2000s, General Motors brought back a similar idea with their GMC Envoy XUV. Studebaker was already having money problems when they introduced the Wagon Air. They were part of the Lark series, but they really needed something to catch people's attention. The car world in the early 1960s was super competitive, with every company trying to come up with the next big thing. Studebaker hoped their sliding roof would make people want to buy their cars and help fix their money troubles. Now, let's talk about what was under the hood. The Wagon Air came with a few different engine options. The basic model had a 170 cubic inch inline-six engine. It wasn't very powerful, but it was reliable and easy to take care of. This made it a good choice for people who just wanted a dependable car for everyday driving without spending too much on upkeep. If you wanted more power, you could get a 259 cubic inch V8 engine. This one gave you better acceleration and was more fun to drive, especially on the highway. For those who really wanted some zoom, there was a 289 cubic inch V8 engine. Some of these even came with a supercharger, which they called jet thrust. This version could really move, making it quite impressive for its time. Even with these options, the Wagon Air wasn't exactly a speed demon compared to other cars from that era. Studebaker was more focused on making it practical and innovative rather than super fast. Let's take a look inside the car. The Wagon Air usually had room for 6 people. It had bench seats in the front, which was pretty common back then. Some models even had an extra seat in the back that faced backward, which was great for big families, or if you needed to carry more people. The dashboard was simple and easy to understand. It had all the important gauges and controls without being too complicated. This made it easy for drivers to keep track of how the car was doing without getting distracted. The inside of the car was pretty typical for its time. It had vinyl seats and carpeted floors. Some of the fancier models had nicer materials and finishes. But the real star of the show was the cargo space. With that sliding roof, you could carry all sorts of tall things. This made the Wagon Air super versatile, great for everything from grocery shopping to moving furniture. It was especially popular with families and people who liked outdoor activities. The 1959 Edsel Villager Wagon. It's a tale of big dreams, bad timing, and a car that's now a rare gem for collectors. Back in the late 1950s, Ford had a bright idea. They wanted to make a new car brand that would fit between their Ford and Mercury lines. They called it Edsel, after Henry Ford's son who used to run the company. The goal was simple: create a mid-range car with more features than a Ford, but cheaper than a Mercury. Ford went all out for the Edsel launch. They did tons of research, spent big on design, and even made a special Edsel team in the company. On September 4th, 1957, they unveiled the cars with a huge ad campaign. They called it E-Day. But here's the thing: the timing was terrible. The US was in a recession, and people weren't keen on buying new, pricey cars. To make matters worse, the Edsel had some problems. It was built using parts from different Ford factories, which led to quality issues. Many buyers had trouble with the car's new features, like the teletouch push-button transmission. And then there was the look of the car. The front grille was meant to stand out, but people often made fun of it, saying it looked like a horse collar or even a toilet seat. Despite all this, Edsel kept making cars, including the Villager wagon. By 1959, they'd made some improvements, trying to turn things around, but the damage was done. People already saw Edsel as a failure. The 1959 models were the last full year of Edsel production. In November 1959, Ford pulled the plug on the brand. Now, let's talk about the 1959 Edsel Villager wagon itself. It was a big car, measuring 210.1 inches long. That's huge by today's standards, but it was normal for a family car back then. The front grille was toned down from the 1958 version, but it still looked weird. The car came in eye-catching two-tone colors like President Red and Talisman Red. Add in some chrome hubcaps and black wall tires, and you've got a real head-turner. Inside, the Villager was all about comfort and style. It had tritone upholstery made from cloth and vinyl. The seats were big and comfy, perfect for families. The dashboard was pretty advanced for its time. It had a rotating speedometer and those teletouch transmission controls we mentioned earlier. These let you change gears with just a push of a button. Under the hood, the Villager packed some serious power. It had a 332 cubic inch V8 engine that put out 303 horsepower. That was plenty of muscle for cruising on the highway or zipping around town. You could get it with a 3-speed manual transmission if you like to shift gears yourself, or an automatic if you preferred an easier drive. The engine was part of Ford's FE family, known for being tough and reliable. It was so good that Ford used it in trucks and performance cars too. The Villager's suspension was well designed, giving a smooth ride. It had independent front suspension and a solid rear axle with leaf springs, which helped soak up bumps in the road. Inside, the Villager could seat 6 people comfortably. The back seats could fold down for extra storage space, making it great for hauling groceries or luggage. The dashboard was packed with chrome and stylish details, adding to the car's appeal. Today, the 1959 Edsel Villager wagon is a hot item for car collectors. Only 5,687 were made, and fewer than 50 are known to still exist. This rarity, plus its unique design and advanced features, makes it very valuable. Restored Villagers have sold for high prices at auctions. One fully restored Villager in President Red and Talisman Red even won a big award from the Antique Automobile Club of America in 2009. Collectors love these cars, not just because they're rare, but because they represent an interesting time in car history when companies were trying out new ideas.